Okay. Well, hello, welcome to another episode of the Internet Herald. I'm your host, Zaid Omar. Today we got a special guest, Mr. Ransom Fox. What's up, Ransom?
Hello, Zaid. How you doing? How you doing? How's everything been treating you the last couple weeks?
Everything's been great, man. I've been on this strict workout regiment right now, doing about 5 to 6 days a week, getting ready for a jiu-jitsu tournament coming up soon. So
Love it.
really excited about that.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I think we're gonna post that on the YouTube channel, or maybe I'll make a separate YouTube channel for that. But it should
Perfect.
definitely be exciting, man. What you been up to, man? Tell me.
A lot recently. Three
Oh,
jobs, two internships, a presidency, and an ambassadorship. Pretty much every day is filled, minus today. But then today's my free day where I get to do fun stuff like this or go on other podcasts. I was just on the Couch Potato Politics podcast. I actually have a meeting today with the e-board of my organization, the Patriot Protection Association, that I'm hopping on after this. And my grandma's flying in, my abuela from Florida. I haven't seen her in about 2 years, so really excited. Also, happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth to everybody. Today's a great day. Everything's going on today. Today's a great day, man.
I love the energy, Ransom. Yeah, and Father's Day is such an important day
Mm-hmm.
because the father is really the authority of the family,
Mm-hmm.
and in my opinion, and just having a strong role model for boys and even girls to look up to in the
Mm-hmm.
family, I think is very crucial. And the mom, of course, has a crucial role as well. So yeah, we gotta respect our fathers. So
Absolutely.
definitely respect the Father's Day. So tell me, man, you like you're one of the most busy people I know, man. Like you like working how many internships again? How many jobs you working?
So right now for the jobs, I do the call center at Mason, as you're well aware of. I do that 3 times a week, where it's an annoying job for money. I gotta beg alumni for money to pay for Mason. I also work as a private contractor for a genealogical firm, JDB Genealogical Incorporated. Basically, this guy does like family history. He researches it, and I do a bunch of software work with Evernote and Google Sheets, and take this data he collects and analyzes it, and I sort it for him. I also am a consultant and e-board member for the Conversationalists, so we meet about once a week, and they pretty much just like consultant meetings. I basically advise them on how they're doing. They ask me for like projects, what are my advice and stuff, what perspective I get paid to do that. And then for internships, I have a 20-hour a week internship with the Conversationalists. I'm on their user acquisition and partner team, so I do a bunch of projects for them. I also reach out to celebrities, people, and other people to try to get them to work with us. I'm also a host of one of their events called the Hot Seat segment, where we try to have hot takes that break open echo chambers. I'm also been guested on their talk show. Last week we talked about religion and astrology. I'm guesting in a talk show canon. It's more of like an internal type of pilot canon. It takes about a year. Like our advisor is Rich Keller. He was on Survivor, so he knows everything that has to do with Hollywood, TV, and the people that lead our organization. They are like, my boss is Desanka. She's an actress and model in Los Angeles. So a lot of these people, they know what it takes. It takes a lot of work. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew it took a lot of work to do stuff like this, like talk shows, and like podcasts and stuff. But it takes like a year at least of piloting, which is crazy. But it's really fun. It takes up a lot of time. I also interned for the Harold Pion campaign every Saturday, 4 hours, knocking doors in Clifton. Um, I'm an ambassador for the Stop the Demand Project, so I go around making. They're a group that wants to end human trafficking through education. So I make content for their Instagram and TikTok, and then I go to monthly meetings with them. And then I'm president and founder of the Patriot Protection Association, which we've already fundraised $20,700, more than the student government's budget last year. We're trying to be able to increase the security, safety, and well-being of Mason and the Fairfax community through the private sector. And we have 3 projects we're really excited to go through. Actually, I went to a meeting with the Mason Police that was confidential. It was very, let's just say there's a lot of big security measures happening at Mason. We're talking to a technology group and a security group that works with the FBI and CIA. And some of the stuff I saw, man, it's like stuff in movies, the security measures that they're trying to implement. So very, very cool things going on, very exciting things. Lift every night, try to at like 1 a.m. And I'm also coaching football this fall, middle school, so I've been prepping. Getting really excited for that. So yeah, a lot's been going on, but it's very exciting. A lot of great people around me. It's a team, and I'm really excited to just get the job going, get the ball rolling.
Yeah, man. And it seems like you have a lot on your plate, man. Like almost like three internships and two jobs. And again, the three internships you're not really getting paid for in the end of the day.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this
Money
is
is
out
like,
of
yeah, I got to make the jobs. I got to do the grind work. Like working at the call center to be able to put food on my plate.
yeah, man. And tell me a little bit more about the conversationalist because
Hmm.
I've done some research, but I don't
Hmm.
understand completely what they represent. And maybe tell a
Yeah.
little bit what you do on your podcast as well, because I'm really interested to hear about
Yeah,
that.
so I don't have a podcast. I've been guested on podcasts. So I met people who have their own podcasts through the conversationalists. I was on Elisa Gonzalez podcast where we talked about cancel culture. I was on Seamus Bozeman's podcast, the Couch Potato Politics, to talk about local government activism. Um, Pretty much the conversationalist is a group of Gen Z leaders who strives to break open echo chambers and converse on anything, any topic, because we feel like that's the way we can unify the world and have progress. We feel like, especially in our generation, there's so many echo chambers, bubbles per se, where people are only surrounded by those who think like-minded on any topic. It can't, not just politics, it could be food, etc. And those who differ get are afraid to speak up, or they get trounced on left and right. So we feel like the goal to unify is to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable and have conversations about things that matter. So our goal is to incorporate as many different diverse viewpoints on anything as possible, to have like a networking type of enterprise of Gen Z leaders from all across the spectrum. I met political people, I've met artists, I've met tech people. It's beautiful. And we're going to start having in person events. But basically, to work with Gen Z orgs, Gen Z leaders and organizations, older as well. We worked with like millennial organizations and like these niche type of like we worked with someone who he's the owner of an organization called Good Gigs in Australia. He works with hooking up Gen Z leaders with organizations that work for them. Just these like really cool brands and stuff, and breaking open echo chambers, hearing new ideas, seeing new actions put into place, and it's pretty much just activism on that level. That we want people to disagree, but we want them to be able to come to the table at the end of the day and just worst case being able to agree to disagree. And it's really fun. We've worked with celebrities. They've worked with Dr. Oz, Kim Kardashian. I worked with the guy in Ned's Declassified, Devin Werkheiser. I was actually on a panel with him because a lot of these people that head this organization, they have a lot of connections. So like it's taking this top down approach, combining it with a bottom up grassroots approach, which is how I think change is made. And it's just really great to just talk about anything like we're doing right now. You know what I'm saying? And like my role, as I said, um, I host a segment. They're trying to do a talk show sort of gig. That's their big type of it. You know what I'm saying? Like you know how like Starbucks has their coffee, that's their brand. Our like it is going to be a talk show that it's going to take a year about piloting, but once it gets big, I'm talking big. Can't really explain how big it's going to go, but like big, big. Can't disclose that, but just big. I'm talking
Yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah.
And they want to be like a Gen Z view combined with like SNL. So like I kind of do like a lighthearted skit. As I said, I host that, and then they switch up the host on the actual talk show about really heavy topics. And then um, I also, as I said, I work for the consultant team, so I just give advice, and then I work 20 hours a week with the user acquisition and partnership teams where discuss strategies and plan of actions about how to incorporate more people. And then we reach out to celebrities, people, not the celebrities themselves, right? Because they're busy, and other organizations and try to recruit them in. So it's kind of like what you did as well, the call center, but like a lot more fun and a lot more impactful, just recruiting.
That's great, man. And everyone starts off somewhere. When you think about it, the Joe Rogan podcast began with like only I
Mhm.
think there was like 200 listeners or so, Joe
Exactly.
Rogan even admits that it wasn't something he would see as big as it
Mhm.
is now. Having so many guests from political, from different like fields and expertise, man. And every time I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, it's almost like I learned something new. And that's what
Exactly.
yeah, and with music, I had nothing against music. I listen to music a lot of the time, especially when I'm working out. Got to get the heavy metal or something. Really gets you pumped up. But I feel like podcast, I get a little bit more out of it.
Mhm.
Like even more knowledge or learn a new
Absolutely.
thing or two. Like for you, what podcasts do you listen to the most? Do you listen to a lot of political stuff or?
JRE. I love JRE because you can learn serious stuff and fun stuff. When you work out, you're more likely to retain stuff. So when I work out, I don't listen to music at all. I either listen to some sports podcasts just to like numb my brain, or I listen to very heavy political podcasts. JRE is really good. I like some Tim Pool stuff. But I like to like mix it up with JRE because I learned a lot of new things as well. And he even said he didn't go into it trying to be famous. It grew organically, which is how the best way things are born is organically. And I was just listening to one on polyamorous relationships right before I hopped on here, just in the background while I was cleaning my room, just to learn. It's always life is about one of the reasons and goals of life is to learn and to equip yourself with as much knowledge as possible for your own benefit, for others' benefit, and for the future's benefit. So exposing yourself to all these different topics and stuff, even just as background noise, your subconscious it clicks, and then you'll be able to retain that and use it if necessary, and have it in your arsenal and sharpen your personal tool shed.
Wow. And also another one I really enjoy, and I even saw a movie produced by them, is London Real. London Real, Brian Rose. Have you ever watched their
I did
podcast or
not, but
show?
I'll be sure to check it out. I'm really bad with names, so maybe I saw him when he met Jerry, but like I'll be sure to check that out after this episode for sure.
Yeah, and they had a movie yesterday, and I want to explain what the movie was about because it really is inspirational and very motivational, especially for people who are trying to either get in shape or accomplish a goal. And you're trying to accomplish a lot of goals, so I think you'll definitely find
Love it.
quality in this movie. It's called Iron Mind, and what it essentially is about is the guy who pretty much is the host of London Real is visiting his friend in New York, and his friend I believe his name's called John Joseph, and I believe he was an old rock and roll, heavy metal. I forgot what genre he was, a musician, and pretty much John Joseph kind of convinces Brian Rose to do the Iron Man challenge. Have you heard of the Iron Man triathlon? Sorry, it's not the
Vaguely. Yeah, yeah,
challenge.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Yeah.
crazy, man. That stuff's hard.
Yeah, I know, and I have some friends that do it, and they say, dude, it takes at least a year of preparation to, get into that. And the shape you got to be in and the endurance, it's all about endurance, it's crazy. And what he pretty much challenges him, he's like, in this 90 days, you're going to get ready for this Ironman challenge. And keep in mind, the Ironman challenge takes at least a year, typically for most people to get ready for. But he's like, you're going to do this in 90 days, and I challenge you to go on a plant-based diet. Now, imagine how challenging that is. Like already the Ironman, if you're doing a year of on a well maintained diet and everything like that, is hard enough. But like, dude, like on a vegan diet, and even like a lot of the strength trainers and stuff he was talking to were saying you can't do it. It's impossible. You're not getting as much nutrients as you would, including meats into your diets and vitamin B12. But I don't want to spoil anything about the documentary. It's definitely worth a watch, and it's definitely motivational because the guy is not young. I think he's like he was 40, late 40s when the movie was going on. So it does show that anything can be accomplished.
I
And for
love
someone
those
like you,
documentaries.
ambitious individual,
Yeah,
yeah.
man. I love those. I love actually one of my favorite things to watch are old Vice documentaries. I don't know if you're familiar with the new ones. I get it; they run out of stuff sometimes, and they're more kind of funky. But like the old ones, like when they fly to North Korea and they tour North Korea, or like when they go to war-clad like nations and stuff like that, and their boots on the ground. Those are so interesting to watch.
Oh
And
my
they did
god.
like they did a Vice documentary on what happened on January 6th. There was like a multi-year project. Vice documentaries is something that I like to listen to when I work out and watch as well because they're real. They're not like, corporatized or sensationalized. Like most of them are very legit and they're very unique as well, which is what I like about it. It's not the same talking points over and over that you'll see on like a Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN.
Yeah, and they see like I saw the episode you're talking about, the North Korea episode,
Mm-hmm.
and you see how like vacant North Korea is.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least in the episode, I believe it was shot back in 2009, 2008. It was an
It was
older Vice
2011. It
episode.
was 2011. It was when Dennis Rodman went.
Oh yeah,
So
Dennis
he loved,
Rodman, the
yeah, yeah,
basketball
yeah.
player. Yeah, apparently Kim Jong Un was quite the basketball player fan or
He loved
basketball
basketball.
fan.
When he studied abroad from North Korea, he fell in love with basketball, and that's like his go-to sport.
Yeah, and also like it just what I like about Vice News is their production value. What
Mhm.
they put into every episode, it's literally like you're watching a mini movie. And
Exactly. You're right.
oh my god, yeah, and the production value. I believe they're produced or they air on HBO,
Hmm.
so they definitely do have the money to back up some of their funding and like their production value. Oh my god, yeah, Vice News is definitely a good one. What's your like go to for news? Like, do you focus on social media? Do you is there a specific news agency
It's
you?
a bit of everything. So I don't like a lot of the Instagram captions people repost. A lot of them are just either spread of misinformation or they're too too sensationalized and simple for very nuanced topics. But it does get me aware, and then I'll research. When it comes to news, I will look at Fox, CNN, and MSNBC for breaking news because they have the $1 billion to be able to cover that, right? You're not going to be everything else that like you read for figuring out what actually happened. They don't have the means to be able to cover stuff 24/7. So if there's breaking news like hurricane in Texas or live shooter in Oklahoma or you know Joe Biden passes away, anything like that, they're gonna be able to give it to you like that. So I constantly check that for the breaking news, but to actually see what really happened instead of sensational talking points that come from those news outlets, I like to read Business Insider. I like to read Politico, Real Clear Politics. 538 by Nate Silver is one of my go-tos because he uses analytics and numbers. I love that. And then I like to look up local news stations that cover said topic to get more of local news isn't always objective, but it definitely has a different feel to it, and it's more chewy per se most of the time.
Yeah.
So I like to
And
get
we
that point of view. Just a combination of all those on a big event is what I like to do.
Yeah, man. And we also need to keep in mind that each mainstream news outlet's going to have its own biases in a way. Even
Yeah,
if,
absolutely.
what it seems like if they're being neutral on a certain subject, they're always going to have that kind of, they're going to either lean more towards the left or the right, depending what, what news station you listen to. You listen to Fox News, and some of the stuff is, you have to admit, is a little over the top,
Very
some of
much
the
so. They all are over the top. They're all globalist, corporatist media, and their only
capitalist
ambition
society.
is to make money, which is not bad. That's their nature. They want to hook people in with implicit bias and be like confirmation bias as well, and for people to feel good reading stories that they agree with. Like, oh man, this is right. I was right on this topic. I was right about Joe Biden, and Donald Trump. It's just when I don't like when people take those news sources to heart because everything is so much more nuanced. So what I like to do, I like to get, let's say there's a story on Donald Trump. I like to get one mainstream. I like to get three more flushed out, like Business Insider, Forbes, Politico, and then I like to get a couple like niche Instagram or Twitter stories on it that clearly are biased, but you mix them all together and you get a better picture. Also, if you're trying to prove a point, always look up the opposition side. If you're trying to prove a leftist point, see if there's a New York Post or Fox News article that agrees with you, because then in a debate, you'll be able to absolutely win. If you're on the right, and there's a talking point or an issue you're trying to prove correct in a debate, find something from the New York Times or Washington Post or CNN that agrees with you. They happen sometimes. They happen more often than you think. They're just not covered as much. But if you find those, you'll be able to easily win a debate because you prove that both sides are covering it. That's what I recommend to people. That's what I personally do.
Yeah, man, and you have to understand both sides in order to have a credible,
Mm-hmm.
source, and you have to also look at your sources as well. If you're getting all your news from Fox News,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to have a very biased point of view towards maybe a
Absolutely.
certain subject. Yeah. So, for me, I don't know. Do you feel comfortable telling where you lie on the political
Yeah, man,
spectrum?
absolutely. So, a lot of people. It's funny. There's actually the Mason political Facebook group, which is just a clusterfuck of failures. It's the worst Facebook entity to be a part of. Like these people shut down anything that they disagree with, and they think people are one or another. It's just such a mess. It's fun to be a part of because it's funny how these people act just to watch from the sideline. The first group, one of them actually shut down because they wanted to have equality in belief points, which is great, but they couldn't decide what belief I was. People were saying, "Oh, he's a leftist, he's a rightist." People were like arguing what I am, and it was so funny because they didn't even ask me what belief I actually hold. I like to define myself as I'm a registered independent, and I switch who I because Virginia is an open state, so right, you can vote either Democrat or Republican primary. I switch it up. So like this election, I was a delegate for the Virginia governor's race. The last main election, which is more local elections, I voted in the Democrat primary. I've worked for the Michael Dukakis Center, which is a Democrat organization in Thessaloniki, Greece, for them. I've also worked for the Andrew Yang campaign for president and for mayor of New York, but I had to stop because it was hard because it was New York. Anyway, I'm working right now for the Harold Pion campaign. He's a Republican. I worked for the John Whitback campaign, Republican. I worked for the Nick Freitas campaign, Republican. My track record's all over the place because my beliefs are not tied down to a party. I hate I hate big party people, and I hate's a strong word. I can't stand. And my beliefs are I'm very anti-establishment. I think my personal beliefs is that Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Mitt Romney, Chuck Schumer, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, they're all the same to me. They're all globalists, capitalists, only in it for themselves and their friends. So I'm more on the anti-establishment end. I like people like Ross Perot. He ran in 1992 and 96. I really liked his policies, how he acts. Andrew Yang is a great example. That's my favorite person in politics right now, though not as much as I used to be. But I would say I'm more pragmatic because I don't just go left or right with issues. I'm all over the place. Like for trade, I'm more left leaning. Let's say for taxes, I'm more right leaning. It's all over the place because I like to be nuanced, independent thinking, and pragmatic. Although my focus, I'm on another podcast. I did a whole thing on local politics, is local politics because I believe that's the most important level of politics. So I like to say I'm more local issues focused, more independent, anti-establishment, and last but not least, I'm kind of more live, let live, unless it hurts the public, and civic nationalist. I believe that you should do what's best for everybody within your nation because no one else will. It's more of a realist approach. So that was a lot. I know it was a mouthful. That's pretty much just to say I'm not like the standard right wing or left wing bear. And I used to be growing up because I grew up in a very one sided household, right? And that's where I grew up. But then expanded my mind. Going to Greece really helped that, and going to college helped that. And now I'm pretty much all over the place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are forgetting that, like, politicians are supposed to represent the people, but
Mhm.
notice that some politicians represent their like their interest rather than
Well, all do.
yeah, yeah, no, there are some we can argue that Bernie, he's been very consistent in the
I mean,
past.
Bernie sold out. He lives in a very large mansion. Every politician is in it for themselves, which is fine. That's how the system. The system is meant for. It's basically a socioeconomic system where you are only in it for your self gain. The point of politics and the point of why our founders framed it the way it is to take this ambition. And while the intentions may not be the purest, although I don't have a problem with it, I don't have a problem with people trying to do what's best for them because that's human nature. You have to have a product that helps other people. You can go in and you can only care about yourself. Zayd, you can go into politics and only want to be president because you want to be president. You like the gigs with it. If you end up fixing our healthcare crisis, making everybody's life better, who cares if you're in it for yourself? The whole point of a political system is to take people's personal ambitions and make it result in a product that helps others because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm in it to help other people. And they're nuanced. Of course, some people like helping other people. But of course, everybody wants to do it for themselves. That's why you get into it. There's perks to it. And that's not a problem if you put out a product that helps other people. The issue is those in power today put out a product that only helps themselves and their friends and those that donate and back them, not the people. And that's what the issue is. But as I said, everyone, you could be a person with good beliefs, but it's not 100%. It's 50-50, 60-40, et cetera, and et cetera.
Yeah, and I think lobbying and money and power also has to do with a lot of like the policies that do go through.
Mhm.
Back when President Trump was, or at the time he wasn't president, but when Donald Trump was running for president, I believe there was a lobbyist that paid him a certain amount of money. It was, I think, in the millions range to help his campaign, and promise in return that they would make, he would like enforce that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Now I don't remember exactly who exactly gave him that much money, but do you see that problematic in a way, like the fact that the lobbyists have most of the control and the
Sure.
actual majority of the
Yeah.
people are not?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the problem in America today, this is more zoomed out, and then we can go into that because the zoomed out issue, this correlates to that, and this is a part of it. The problem in America today is that we have a caste system, not a class system. Our capitalist, globalist system has become a system of crony capitalism with oligopolies and monopolies, which leads to economic failures and social failures. Big government, big tech, big media, big business leads to so many vast issues across the nation. One of this is that these oligopolies and monopolies not only have all the economic power and suck up the market so that small businesses can't really get a head start, they also have all the political and social power. Because of how we are as a society, how big of a nation we are, you need money to rise up. You get that money from these companies. These companies aren't going to want you to go in and bust them up and break them up. They're going to want you to help them out. The only person that can really, truly, potentially make change is a self funded person. However, a lot of these self funded people are friends with all the people at the top because it's all just a small circle. The deep state isn't some lizard people conspiracy or some, InfoWars type stuff. All the deep state is bureaucrats and lobbyists who have been in power for a long time. You don't know who they are because they don't get attention and they're working for themselves, which is human nature. They're not evil. They're not bad people. Some, of course, some may be assholes. But most of the time, they just want to push their interest through, which is helping themselves, which you can't blame them. Everyone will do that at the top. So, excuse me. So, what you need somebody who can be self funded, go to the top, and bust up all of these monopolies and oligopolies. You do that, they will lose their economic power, which is a whole other issue. They'll also lose their political power, and you can have people that don't need to have these big donations and big donors and funders rise to the top. But that's going to be clearly impossible because to do that, you need someone, number one, with the money to do that by themselves. And number two, that person has to be willing and able to basically give the middle finger to their friends and bust them up, which Donald Trump ran on doing, but he didn't really do. He did he more kind of exposed it rather than act on it. We need someone like a Teddy Roosevelt to act on it and bust up the big companies.
Well, I think also the reason why Donald Trump was so like prolific and stuff, it was he had that money. He didn't need he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't relying on donations from contributors and lobbyists. Even though he did get a lot from his supporters,
Mm-hmm.
but he also had that he had those multiple businesses. He had that the economics in front of all the policies. He saw that first. He said, okay, we need to create jobs. I'm not saying I was for or against the guy. Again, I consider myself on my political spectrum, libertarian, lean more towards the right. And that's just how I am. The thing is, I'm willing to understand like different people from, like how you said, you got to work with the Democrats, you got to work with the Republicans. We are here to politicians are there to represent the people. Now, if they were to represent only one section of the population, that could piss off the other section. That's why you had this whole like limbo of CNN like hating or like other news outlets hating on Trump, and then other ones like really praising him and saying he's one of our best presidents. And even Joe Biden was saying during the debate, he's like, "Oh, you're one of the worst presidents we've ever had." But then like I would say, well, like dude, almost half the other population, like thinks he's the best
Mm-hmm.
president. So also, you mentioned you worked with Andrew Yang, and I do want to mention some of his policies. I don't know if you agreed on a lot, like everything he stood for. So, universal basic income. Let's
Mm-hmm.
start with there. You get essentially from what I heard, and this was from the Joe Rogan podcast. I didn't do
Mm-hmm.
extensive research. Is that he wants to give workers who are unemployed due to automation, replacement by automation, $1,000 per month. Do you think the U.S. economy could really do that? Like for like for the people who got replaced, like who were working service jobs, do you think that's feasible? Because I don't really believe that that could be feasible.
Cool. So universal basic income, its goal is to help workers who are laid off. Actually, everybody. To be honest, I think it helps out everybody who's not in the elite socioeconomic class. But it's not just given to those workers; it's given to everybody. So Alaska already does this with oil. They have an oil check they give to people because the oil gives them so much wealth and revenue that they use it to subsidize all the people that live there. And Alaska's a red state, which is very interesting because you wouldn't think that Republicans would support something like this, but it works very well in Alaska. Milton Friedman, the godfather of right leaning economics, was a proponent of this, and so was Martin Luther King Jr. UBI, the whole goal of it is to create a trickle up economy. The whole goal of it is to transfer money over from ineffective and inefficient welfare programs and to give it in the most liquid and free way as possible to the people, which is direct cash or check, which of course you can make a cash. Let people do what they want with the money instead of being told what to do, having to wait in large lines, having ineffective government programs that don't really do much help. Rather, they keep people trapped at the bottom instead of allowing them to invest up and rise up. That is the goal of UBI. You have to be very careful of how you implement it. When Andrew Yang wanted to do it when he was running for president, he proposed 12,000 a year. The median poverty line was at 12.4K, which is good. You want it right below the poverty line. You want it so that it allows people to have a safety net, so that instead of all the time just living paycheck to paycheck and spending your money on necessities to survive, have that so you can take the money you earn and invest in the stock market. Take a loan to go to college. Take a loan from the bank to create your own business and offer a product or service that will help others around you and help your community and yourself as well. What the goal of this is to allow people to use the wonders of capitalism, because that is lost right now. Capitalism is great because it allows people to take risk and do what they want and be free. Right now, because of the crony capitalism we have a lot of people who are in shackles because of capitalism, and they are just trying to get the needs to survive. And these government programs, some are okay, a lot of them keep people down. They don't really help out. So what this does, it allows you to do what you want. If you take that 1,000 a month and you want to spend it on better podcasting equipment because you believe your it is podcasting, you can do that. Instead of being having to do whatever the government program says. Let's say you're living by yourself, you're struggling. Instead of having to take that money and having to basically just do what the government says, you can do what you want with that money. If you want to spend all of it on collector shoes, that's your choice. Maybe that's not the best choice economically, but it's your choice.
Some people would argue that that $1,000, even though you could say you could invest it or use it for rent or whatnot, that $1,000 nowadays, especially with inflation, really doesn't really add up to much. Especially rent. I can't think of a place that is like has a rent of $1,000. Like especially since these people aren't really working, and the whole point of universal basic income. The main point is to get those people who used to work service jobs just that additional income, but they're not working those jobs anymore, so they're not getting really additional extra besides that $1,000. So that's my point of view. Like, what do you like? What's your response to that? Really?
So so it wouldn't raise inflation if done correctly because it transfers money from one program to another. You also may add a VAT tax as well to kind of offset it. If you just print more money and hand it out to people, that's so stupid. That's not what UBI is. If someone does that as UBI, you're going to cause a huge inflation price crisis, which low key we're seeing today. Honestly, low key we're seeing that right now. It's transferring money over. That's why there's no inflation. As I said, the median U.S. national poverty line was 12.4K. So this 12K would allow people to be right below the poverty line, so that if they do get money from a job, and of course you're not going to transfer this from every single program, so there's still going to be an unemployed benefits program, etc. You'll be able to combine all of these benefits, which I take UBI as, and be able to, instead of just scraping together everything, try to invest, try to go up, because that is enough. You can use the 1,000 either as your means to survive, and everything else you can let's say your income from your job or some other benefits, you can try to use that to invest. Or most people will take their income from the job and take their benefits, use that to survive, and the 1,000 to invest. It's not going to be like that, but it takes time, but you're still going to be able to have the opportunity to do that. Especially if this is what I would propose, instead of one national UBI, if you did state UBIs, because as you said, people live in different situations. The United States is such a large and different and diverse nation, which is beautiful. We have to accommodate for that. Someone living in Wyoming is a different economic and social and honestly incentives on what they want to do than someone living in California. So if you do a state UBI, and you could have the federal government already subsidizes states like New York. They send so much money to a bunch of states in the middle of America because the federal government pretty much makes them to do. So you can do some working out to make sure subsidies are there, but you can pretty much, each state has a different poverty line, right? I don't know what each state is on top of my head, but let's say Virginia, it's anything below 15,000. So you give people 14.5 thousand total a year. You transfer that money over, obviously, not just give them. You transfer the money over into cash. Let them do what they want. You'll see new businesses popping up. You'll see more investments in the stock market. You'll see new ideas and products coming to place. And it would solve a lot of other issues as well, because the reason why a lot of people, if you're unemployed or you don't have the means to survive, the likelihood of you abusing yourself or others doubles, pretty much doubles. So you'll see those rates start to decrease because everything's economics. If once you have the means to survive, you'll have less depression, you'll have less anxiety. You'll also be less obliged to turn to do crimes, because a lot of people enact crimes out of necessity, not out of want. There's some crazy, of course, there are people that are going to just be psychopaths, but that's not the majority of people. This is a good way to help people out. And in addition, those who are at the top and get this $1,000, they're probably going to invest it down. People at the top invest money, a lot of their money down in organizations or donations anyway. So this $1,000 check is nothing to them. If you're rich, $1,000 is chump change. You'll probably send it down. If you're at the bottom, if you're a single mother with 4 kids, that $1,000 is everything to you. This gives you hope. This allows you to pay for those diapers and now also maybe invest in the stock market or work on an idea you want or go to college potentially, wherever X amount of dollars. It's not perfect, but it's the best possible solution. Now, if you go too much, if you go over that poverty line, you're going to disincentivize people from doing anything, and it's going to create a very poor society, community, and culture. So you need to balance it very well, and there are ways to do that. But that's why I believe, to your point, one national one may not be the best. Having state ones where it's more, you know, subject to the state and more individualized, I believe personally is a better way of doing things.
So you're essentially saying with the $1,000, you're saying it should be state focused, and that the states with less job opportunities and less economic, prosperity should have larger universal basic incomes. Is that
It's
what
based
essentially what you're saying?
it's based on the state poverty line. So it's based all on what poverty is for each state, because it differs, right? It's not like the national poverty line, which in 2018 was $12,400 a year. It could be different. I don't know what they are at the top of my head, right? But of course, each state varies. So it's because $12,000 may be too much money for one state. One state maybe the poverty line is below. For another state, it could be too little. You need more money to be able to have it felt. To your point, which is why, state based X amount of dollars that are decided upon based on the X amount of whatever the poverty line is by state is the best way to run it. You could also do it locality wise, but they don't have enough money or power to really do that. And some do, maybe like New York City, which is what Andrew Yang wants to do as mayor, right? Big cities, yes. Small towns, if you have a town of like 20 people, it's going to be kind of hard to do that. It could work maybe, but it's safer to do it safer to do it statewide.
Yeah, yeah. Also, it's interesting what you brought up, like about how like economic situations and mental health are kind of
Oh my
interconnect
God,
in a
yes.
way. Yeah, and Andrew Yang was talking about that in on the Joe Rogan Experience. He's like every time somebody, like they feel like they can't afford something, they always try to find a way to cut back on money. Either like take the bus to work or not eat out on specific days. But that just, according to Andrew Yang, he said that lowers the IQ. It doesn't really get you to like overcome those obstacles. It rather just dumbs you down in a way. Would you agree with that at all, or do you?
it it pretty much just it makes you grind more and kind of become numb more, because you have to just kind of go through these numbing day-to-day experiences, just depressed on the bus, going to work a job that you probably get underpaid for, that you hate, to come home to not enjoy yourself because you're stressed out because your house may get foreclosed, your house may get taken away from you, you don't have enough money in savings to pay for your son's college, and it's just this perpetual pattern of depression. No one wants to live that life. But if you
Yeah,
had that safety net so that you could take care of not everything, it's not going to be like that, but you could divert some to take care of your housing bills. You divert some to your child's college fund. You'd use the rest of it, maybe go out for a nice dinner with your family. Maybe if you want to make more money, invest in the stock market. Maybe you have a trade. Maybe you're a great artist. Art, it's a very hard field to break into, but you have this money to now get the resources to be able to try to put yourself out there. It just allows you to do what's best for you. The problem with big government programs, it's not that they're malicious or evil. It's just that everybody is different. We all don't fit under a blank slate. There are similarities, but everybody has their individual unique issues, talents, wants, needs, and allowing them to choose what they want to invest in is a lot better than telling them what they have to invest in. And maybe they mess up. Maybe you have somebody who spends that money on a drug addiction. Maybe you have somebody who spends that money instead of investing it in their child's college on a shoe collection. But you know what? That's their choice. That's their choice. And if they want to do that, that is their choice. We shouldn't control people and tell them what to do, even if we assume that they're incorrect. That is my personal opinion. That's more subjective, but this is what objectively that allows.
Okay. Very interesting. Many people would argue against the whole universal basic income, just proposition, and they'd be like, "Oh, why don't we just redirect that money into education to get those people who worked service jobs, either as a waiter, a trucker, just anything that's physically tolling, like into like more of programming or something that's
Mhm.
hot right now in the industry." Would that also be a proper solution? Do you feel, or is that?
Are you referring to government retraining programs? Because that's
Yeah,
most
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yes. So those have a very, very low success rate. I believe it was 12, 13, 14%, one of those success rate. It's almost impossible for that to work. The
Why do you
beauty,
think that is? I like
because
out of your
I believe
opinion.
it is because people, if you grow up doing one thing your whole life, if you're talking specifically about blue collar workers, drivers, coal miners, these industries that steel workers that are going away, that's all you know. That's all you do. Especially if there's someone 30 or over, the technological boom of the 21st century, it's I don't blame older people for not understanding how this works. My mother and father, they're in their 50s. They don't understand a lot how stuff. They have a basic grasp, right? They know what stuff
Yeah.
is, but it's not like us, right? And these new jobs, a lot of them are tech jobs. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, and you shouldn't expect them to. This study was done, I believe, in the 60s. The government retraining was during the Kennedy days. It's probably a lot lower now because it's very hard to take someone who's been doing and raised in a way their whole life and to force them to do something else. It's just unfair and almost impossible. The good news is that UBA, it could be long lasting, but maybe it doesn't have to be because people our age, we are growing up doing these jobs. We are doing the IT jobs. We are doing the tech jobs. We don't need a retraining because that is our blue collar stuff. I mean, there's still people our age who do traditional blue collar jobs. Don't get me wrong, but because the demand for these jobs that are getting phased out is becoming less and less, there's a lot less people in our generation and the future generations who are going to work those jobs. So there won't be necessarily a need to protect them from this oncoming wipeout. What you do need to do is protect the 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old worker from this because it's so unfair to them that just because um, some numbers and stats on a graph change, that their whole livelihood's wiped out. And you can't expect them to do something that they have no grasp or concept of to do. I'm not saying they're dumb or stupid at all. These people are
No,
great
no.
people.
Yeah,
These are
and for
great.
anyone who's like worked programming or like anything that's IT related, these are not easy things to just
Exactly.
delve into and like learn automatically. There are people I know that like they either worked as like a manager at Wegmans or worked a very like more service type of role, and that they were able to get into cybersecurity or they're able to get into like computer programming.
Mhm.
But the majority, based off what you're saying, is that that's not like always
Yeah, it could
gonna.
happen. And for those people, that's great. And there should be training programs in place for those people who want to and think they can to do it. But that shouldn't be the only option because while it is numbers on the spreadsheet, those are livelihoods, right? The thing about economics, which is so interesting, is that it's a science, right? It's a science. And unlike other sciences, like let's say chemistry, where you can go in a lab and you can experiment. You know, unlike that, unlike engineering, where you can go to an engineering class and experiment, economics is a study of real life, real time livelihoods. These are people at the end of the day. You can't, I mean, some people do experiments with monkeys, some people there's like games you do that prove theories. But in terms of real world felt economics, the science of economics, it's our livelihoods, it's our day-to-day lives. And most of the time, because of the nature of it, you just look back, you see what works and doesn't work, make prediction of what's going to work now, go for it and do the best you can. That's why not a lot of risk are taken because these are people's lives. You can't just say, oh, well, 80% of call workers, they're not going to learn how to retrain, but it's fine because it's better for everybody as a whole. These people are individuals. You can't just sacrifice their livelihood, their mental health, their physical health, their lives pretty much for the good of everybody. else. I'm not a believer in that because I think every person is valued equally. Thus, we should try to take care of each other equally as much as possible. That is my perception on that.
Yeah, and like again, like there are people who make the choice that they want to like switch from one industry to the next, and it's pretty easy for them, especially if they're in the younger ages. But for people who've been working, let's say you've been a truck driver for 25 years, and you started when you were 30, for example, right? So, and you're 55 years old, and you have back problems and chronic pain and whatnot. And maybe your learning is not as good as it used to be. It's a lot harder to get into like something like
Absolutely.
programming or cybersecurity. Another thing that Andrew Yang advocated for, and it was a form of government, it's called technocracy. And for people who don't know, technocracy is essentially someone who has expertise in a certain field, whether it be in the scientific or technology field, and they're usually chosen to be the president or the ruler of the country. Do you see that as an effective form of government, like rather than somebody who knows like kind of can delve into each
Mm-hmm.
kind of political topic?
Absolutely. What you have is you have political appointees to top departments and agencies purely based on one's relationship to another or one's deeds to another, not on expertise. How can you be efficient in that way? We're all about efficiency here. If you're an elected official, let's say I'm elected to office and there is a issue on cyber attacks, I can get prepped on it. I can make a decision on it, but I'm not an expert at it. So I want there to be an agency with experts in this that pretty much make the decisions, right? There's stuff that elected officials are valuable for, but in terms of other fields and enterprises, they're not experts on it, and they're not the ones who are able to make the best decisions, which is why you see just a lot of failures over and over again. That's why there's still a water crisis in Flint, Michigan, because the people that are put there um, to put policies in place don't know what to do, and it's not fault of their own. They're not experts, so let the experts do it. It's so much more efficient. That's what the private sector does, and that's why the private sector is so efficient. That's why I think you need to mix it together, not a full technocracy, because then there's no representation,
Yeah,
right? Mix it together, and then you'll have, I mean, that's not going to happen because the political people aren't going to want to let their power, but ideally if you have like a syncretic blend of a technocracy and a democracy, or a republic and a technocracy, you'll have a great, that's what China does, and that's why China is kicking our ass, and they're kicking the rest of the world's ass, because they are just, they're running it very, very efficiently and effectively, and that's not what we have here.
yeah. And also imagine if we had like an expertise in cybersecurity that was in like the presidency, or like even like in a high political position.
Mhm.
The situation in which the pipeline, remember,
Yeah, 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 that just
the
happened. Yep, the
colonial, yeah,
gas.
that was due to a ransomware attack.
Hmm.
And President Joe Biden decided to pay off the hackers rather than try to find a credible solution. And again, it's not the easiest thing to solve, especially if they got your data in like ransom, essentially. Someone who is an expertise in cybersecurity probably would have found a way, or some company would have found a way. I bet it would be a profitable idea, a way to either prevent ransomware attacks or to mitigate the damage. Because so far, like caused an increase in gas prices and other. It just
Hmm.
goes to show that someone in another country could literally declare war through their
Absolutely.
laptop.
Actually, that's so. I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTuber Jake Tran. I watched him a lot of his videos. We, America, as a nation and as a society, are so screwed when it comes to warfare because we are on the low ground. The high ground in warfare nowadays is technology. And our technological defense mechanisms are so behind the offense of Russia and China. While we are investing in tanks and planes and guns, China and Russia are investing in getting the best and brightest hackers on their team. We are being totally fooled. We are looking in the wrong direction. Warfare, it's always about who is the high ground, right? When America fought in the 90s in the Middle East, the jets were the new high ground, right? While Saddam Hussein was focused all on the ground forces, they got wiped out like that because jets were the new high ground. We are now on the ground and we have no idea what to do or where to go when it comes to being hacked because we are focusing our efforts in the wrong places and we are being played and fooled. You need to have more defense on tech mechanisms, and we are not doing that whatsoever. That's why China and Russia can easily topple the American society because we are focusing our efforts in the wrong places, and it's very scary. It's very scary.
Yeah, and think about it. Most of our society is run on the internet nowadays. Internet of Things, like your iPhone, your computer. Even like your, certain cars have like operating systems. If you get a Tesla, it runs on I believe, a Linux operating system. If it's very easy to control the things that we are now like, or pretty much we see as necessities nowadays, which they really aren't. Food, water, sleep. That's all like necessities that we as human beings need. But nowadays it seems like technology is just another necessity that we need, and it controls our lives. Economics. Think about a lot of businesses have transitioned into the online format, especially with COVID. Um, so, like, what do you think is the future as far as? So we know that the vaccines are out, and I don't know how much of the American population has been vaccinated or not. Do you see as COVID as kind of like now the flu, the new flu, if anything, or do you think that you know it's going to have an impact? It's still going to have an
So COVID is our new 9/11. There is no going back to the new normal. Once 9/11 hit, society changed. Just by little, it wasn't great, but society changed. Because of COVID, things are not going to get back to how they were. It may not be marginally to view a difference, but people are going to wear masks more. People are going to be more less incentivized to be in large crowds. People are going to wash their hands more, which is a good thing, right? People are going to there's good and bad to it. But society has changed because now if there's a flu outbreak, people are going to remember this and they're going to lose their shit, to put it nicely. Like I think yeah, so as I was saying, there is a new normal, whether for better or for worse, we'll see. But after 9/11, society changed. And because of COVID, society is going to change. It's not going to be like it was, before the outbreak. And that's okay. Changes happen in society. We just have to do it the best we can with it. But I do believe that while the flu itself, who knows? Who knows? Maybe become, whether, excuse me, while COVID itself, whether it becomes a flu or not, who knows, right? I assume so. I assume we're going to get vaxxed every year or something like that. Who knows what the variants will be? But in terms of the bigger impact, which is societally, culturally, I think that it is a new normal. Not a new normal as like, oh, we all are getting tracked by the government. Not a new normal as like this is anarchy or anything. No, just changes happen. Subtle changes in society happen, and it's going to be different, and that's okay. We're just going to have to saddle up and do the best we can with it.
Yeah. And also, we keep it. I forgot to mention that, like during quarantine, you were actually in Greece. It was
Oh
during
yes.
quarantine, wasn't it?
Oh, it was right when COVID hit, man. While y'all were selling out of toilet paper, we were trying to get food to survive. We were like, Americans are so privileged. Americans are so privileged compared to the rest of the world. We were trying to get the basic necessities to survive while everyone here is running out of toilet paper. And we're like, this is just embarrassing, man. Like,
Especially the Greek economy. They're not like
oh,
the most
yes. The Greek
stable.
economy is very unstable, and 80% of their economy is tourism. So you have a situation where a lot of people are already struggling for food. You shut down the vast majority of their economic input, right? How they make money. So, and you also have people panicking because at the time, man, you had no clue what this was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're closer to China than America was. You had no clue what this was, and all of a sudden it was like Italy's hit. We're like, oh my god, we got hit. So people panicked. People would
Italy
jump each
got
other,
hit pretty
hit
bad.
hard. Yeah, people would jump each other for food in stores. Stores shut down. So now the only way to get food is scraping through trash cans or hoarding up. We had to do that. We had to scrape through trash cans at night. We were only there for 2 weeks, then we left. But every night I would go out at about 1 or 2 a.m., scout everywhere because the leaves in our housing, thanks George Mason, the leaves in our housing was up. They said we would have a place to stay. Then George Mason said, just kidding. After 2 weeks, you're on your own. And we're like, okay, we got 2 weeks to figure out where the hell we're going to live, where we're going to get food, where we're going to be safe. Because when I'd walk around scouting at night, I saw people get jumped. One time, me and my now girlfriend, this was right when it hit, got chased by dogs. I heard people screaming. I was trying to like figure out, get a mental map in my head, figure out where we're gonna go, what we're gonna do, what we're gonna do for food. We had food in our hotel, running very low. We had to stock up. A couple times had a scourge as well. In
Yeah, and it's
addition, one time I was walking by, it's just so apocalyptic. I actually have a lot of videos and stuff. I looked like an Antifa member, man. I had bandana around my mouth, didn't want to be seen, black leather jacket, black hoodie up. One time I was walking around the hospital and a big, huge trash can got knocked over. So there were syringes, there were gloves and face masks everywhere. It was a minefield. And at the time, we didn't know this would spread through touch. So I was like walking around like in the pitch black. It was really exciting, but very eye opening and very intense.
Yeah, and that seems very different from my experience during quarantine because I was in Northern Virginia during the time, and I just remember looking around, and I remember like the streets that used to be so packed and traffic filled were just empty. Yeah, and it definitely wasn't as bad as how you made it out to, like, in Greece, how it probably was. But there was definitely some scarcity going on, especially with toilet paper. That was
Mhm.
everyone was hoarding that for some reason. It was the same thing what happened with the gas.
Yeah, no, is people panic. You panic, and it makes sense if it's like food or something. I get it, but
And I
like
heard some dumb stuff about people like getting these plastic bags and filling it up with gas and tying it up and putting it in their back of their
it
trunk.
makes it worse. It makes the situation worse. That's why my dad's like, "Look, I'm just gonna get gas if I need it. I'm not gonna hoard it because it's gonna make the situation worse."
Exactly, yeah, and when there's the high demand, everyone's going to try making a quick profit somehow.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, back to the quarantine. I remember when I would go out at night. Thessaloniki, Greece is a beautiful city. Favorite place in the world. It's always packed with music, laughter, and joy. I heard the buildings, the ACs in the buildings, or let's say the energy in the buildings. I heard nothing but whirring, like bzzz, nothing but that, and some screams isolated at night. It was very apocalyptic. I got some videos. There were posters everywhere, like xenophobic, racist posters. There was like Greek posters saying it's a microchip. There are also there are a lot of places where, because it's very Orthodox church like, because it's right on the it's very Byzantine history heavy. It's right on the border, right near Turkey, in that area. So it's definitely more Orthodox heavy. There were always places where you could go pray, and there were candles lit. You could always light a candle and pray. It's very peaceful.
Nice,
You
nice.
know how big religions is in Greece. When COVID hit, they ran out of candles for those things. They never do that. That is a no. So I knew when that happened, when that shut down, I'm like, this is legit, yo. Like their whole society, everyone, society is on pause. And it's very terrifying.
Wow, yeah, and like also, I don't know what kind of form of government Greece still has. Is it oligarchy still, or is it like
No,
technically
so it's like
democratic?
it's a parliament. They have a president too. Their president is actually he's like a neocon. His dad was president in the '90s. They're like the Bushes. The government actually used this situation to gain legitimacy. So the Greek government, prior to COVID, had no say whatsoever. They canceled all these big carnivals for partying. People threw them anyway. We would ride on the bus for free, even though you're supposed to pay for a ticket. You could do whatever you wanted in Greece. It was pretty much a social libertarian's paradise. There are laws, but they're never enforced. There's no legitimacy. Now, because of COVID, you cannot go outside unless you text the government. They give you permission. You're out there for 2 hours. If a policeman or woman stops you, you don't have the signed papers or the virtual text, or you're out past your time, €500 fine right away. Second time you're in jail. It's
Wow,
crazy. And it's it's the nature of the government to capitalize on things to gain power. They had no say whatsoever. There was a joke. There's a metro station being built in Thessaloniki since 1989. It hasn't been finished. The public sector, works Monday through Wednesday, 9 to 12. They had no say. You could do whatever you wanted, pretty much, unless you straight up killed someone. But even then, there's a hard time to stop you. Now, this government is like, this is our chance to gain legitimacy. And still in Greece, they were about to have a graduation for the seniors in 2020 and 2021 in the college I went to. The day before, the government said, nope, they shut it down. So they
wow.
use this as a way to gain legitimacy for better or for worse. It's up to whether you're a libertarian or authoritarian, but that they really use this to do that. And there's some stuff open, some stuff not, but it's a lot more shut down than we are as America.
Wow. Also, I noticed some other countries were taking advantage of that too. Like, I know in the Middle East, especially, there was some countries like Dubai. Dubai is a city, but United Arab Emirates. They were imposing heavy fines, and I believe, they had drones out. Again, and my dad lives there, so he told me all about it. He said that they were imposing heavy fines. You needed a permit to even go to a grocery store. So, and I know also in Jordan as well, another Middle Eastern country, that they were also imposing heavy fines, but people just didn't really.
Yeah, they didn't care. Is the Dubai and UAE open now? Because I have a friend who's there, and she's always posting on her story, and it looks like they're back to normal now. Like they're partying and stuff.
Oh yeah, during I was there during New Year's actually, and this was still when COVID was still impacting society in a way. Uh, and I visited, and that was actually the tourist hub during that time because every other country was shut down, and Dubai had open arms. It was like, okay, we'll take anybody, because our some of our economy relies on tourism, so why not
Right.
have everybody over for And they always have these magnificent events in which they have these fireworks coming out of these buildings, like
Beautiful.
Burj Khalifa had them, and they were all just shooting up in the air. There's this other Turkish hotel that had like some of the most impressive fireworks I've seen in a while. So, and there was a lot of celebrities there during that time too. A lot of TikTokers, Instagram influencers, stuff like that. Definitely, we're trying to sell people on that, but. Also tell me a little bit about the food because the
Oh
Mediterranean diet is
man.
one of the healthiest I hear.
Yeah. So I'm not a big tomato fan because up here, like cafeteria tomatoes are pretty gross, but everything in Greece is grown fresh. You know that the higher GDP and wealth an individual has, but GDP of a country, you have the more likely are to commit suicide. Greece is some places where they have the longest life expectancy in the world because they're so happy. The Mediterranean lifestyle is so superior, at least to the Nova lifestyle, because while the food is amazing, the weather is great, the scene is great. What made me fall in love with Greece and what is still why I talk to people almost every day, it's almost been a year and a half now, is the people. The Greek people, they have it right. They know what's important in life. They care about memories, doing things, going to events, each other. It's not just all about the money. America's become a business. It's about money. In Greece, of course, money needs to survive, but they care about each other and about living life. That's why I've fallen in love with the Greek people. That's why I've fallen in love with Greece. That's why I still talk to them to this day because they get it. They know it's right. Food's great, don't get me wrong, but why I love Greece
The
is the
people.
people. The people.
The people. I knew what you were about to say. Yeah, because you go to like the Middle Eastern region, for example, and you see pure Arab hospitality. Like they would literally invite you to their house. They would literally bring you like 2 cups of tea, cookies, sweets, especially Arabic sweets. Man, those are deadly. Man, you gotta
Oh yeah,
talk about.
I've had some up here. There's a really good restaurant I go called Mazadar. Mazadar restaurant right near
Where is
where I
that?
live. It's right near the government center, and I'm really close to the owner, and it's just
I'll
great.
search it up. I'll search it up.
Yeah, man, it's great food. The lady's not, she always gives me free baklava. Great, man. It's a great place. It literally
Free
Greece reminded me
advertisement.
of what? Yeah, shout out to Mazadar. Greece reminded me of West Coast laid back plus Southern hospitality. It was beautiful. It's just and like they're always care about you. So like in America, I'm always telling them I'm on the go. I'm driving. I'm drinking coffee. When you say let's have cafe, let's have frappe in Greece, you sit down for an hour. You talk. You catch up. You're not. There's very little fast food places in Greece because not everyone's not on the go being slaves to their school, to their job, to society. They are free. They're like when I told them I was stressed out, they're like just nap for a couple days. I'm like I wish I could. I can't. I got my job. I got things to do. I gotta like try to move out soon. Socioeconomically, especially in Nova. I had to go to. The only reason went to Mason is because we didn't have enough money to send me anywhere else. Even though this is my last school, I couldn't live on campus. I gotta work all these jobs and these internships that can open up jobs just to get out. It's not like that. And of course there's struggles. They got economic struggles. Don't get me wrong. I helped out in student government over there. We raised the most goods, record-breaking goods that was actually covered in the local GR Times for the Melissa Center Orphanage, which helped out homeless orphans there, which is a huge problem. Don't get me wrong, economics is important, but you have to have a balance. And I'd rather have a good society and people and a good economy because you can take a people and a society and make a good economy. Economy usually makes it bad people. So they
Yeah,
got
and
it right. They have potential. They have potential.
yeah, and also like I noticed that in America we have such an individualist culture,
Absolutely.
and over there they have like there's that collectivism. Is that that's the opposition
Yeah.
to individualism? Yeah,
Absolutely.
collectivism.
Yeah. Communalism, collectivism. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed like once like I even see immigrants come into here and they kind of already adapt that individualist mentality. And I think there's pros and cons to each. I believe it being an individualist in a way gives you independence. You're not really not as much reliant on the family or the family reliant on you. But like collectivism in a way just like it allows for people to unify in a way and like give back to maybe some of the people who are in a like less advantage, either mental illness or physical illness of any kind. So collectivism in a way, if they're your family members or part of your culture, you help those kind of people out. And do you feel like America should be more collectivist in a way?
Although I like collectivism low key better than individualism, I would say no, because there's not really a lot of other places that are as successfully individualist as America. So what this offers you is a diversity of options. You can go to other places that are more collectivist. You can stay here, which is more individualist. If we did become like the rest of the world, it would be kind of the same all around. And it's beautiful to see the differences and the kind of to the juxtapositions of each ideology, if that makes sense. Even though I agree with it less, I still want it around because then, for other people, it gives them the option. Without America being individualist, there's less likely options to be and live in an individualistic society.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also, just to end off on a final note, like so you work with both Democrats and Republicans.
Yep.
What do you like? Just to end this off, what do you find is an efficient way to bring them both to the table and agree on like what's an effective method for that to get like if you were tasked?
I would say, in terms of, are you talking about people who believe in that ideology or people who are elected in office who are
No,
Republicans?
no, just having a normal debate about it without like you
Yeah.
know.
So then there are three keys to that. I would like to say. Number one, well, obviously, first bring people together that disagree. Okay. Number one, set the ground rules that you're gonna have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the only way we learn and grow. Right? Is being comfortable being uncomfortable. Number two, use I statements instead of saying like we need a wall. Say something like I think we need a wall. Just a little difference right there. If you disagree with me, you are going to be a lot more comfortable if I say I think, I believe, instead of we need this, making it a black or white yes or no. If I say Trump's a racist and you're a Trump supporter, you're going to be like, what the heck? If I say, well, I believe he is, here's why. Just that little difference right there is going to allow for conversations to happen and for it not to be shut down and for it not to be like an attack. Number three, I would like to say in terms, so we already have comfortable being uncomfortable. Um, use I statements. Number three, find at least one thing you can agree upon because we agree more than we disagree. We just don't realize it. Find one thing you can agree upon. A lot my go-to example is infrastructure. Everybody left and right thinks our infrastructure is trash. We need more infrastructure. Find one thing you agree upon. Take it and work together with your different viewpoints. Find a solution about how you can fix it. Left and right, we both think our infrastructure in America is trash. It's basura. So what we need to do, left, some people on the left may have their ways of fixing it, some people on the right may have their ways of fixing it. Come together, find a productive policy to put through and to lobby for. If you do those three things, comfortable being uncomfortable, I statements, and then try to find at least one thing to work on and agree upon, even if it's agreeing to disagree, it's the worst case scenario. You will have a mind-blowing conversation. Your perspectives will get changed. You will learn, you will grow, and you will unify. That's what we need more in our society because we as Gen Z, we're not just the future, we're the present as well.
Yeah. And I feel like instead of closing doors to conversations, we should open them,
Open them.
like by saying like, if you're having a debate with someone and someone says, "Oh, Trump's a racist," and that shuts down that closes the door. That shuts down the conversation. Then each side sees each other as irrational in a way. There needs to be an element of rationality when it comes to debates. And that's why I'm for, just people having a rational discussion about it. But unfortunately, in today's society, I just see a lot of people just getting emotions involved on
And
both
that's okay.
sides.
Stuff is emotional. It's okay to understand that. I also think a big issue is that a lot of people, when they disagree, it's because they have different definitions. When someone says blank is racist, well, what is racism? That can mean different things to different people. So coming together and finding a commonality, what you can agree on of definitions of certain topics is key to unifying. But you're absolutely right, people do use emotion, but it's okay. You shouldn't have to be a robot. Mix it together and understand. Be like, look, I'm emotional on this. Great example, Palestine, Israel. There are a lot of them because these are people's families and livelihoods. You know what I'm saying? Understand. Be like, preface by saying, look, I got family there. I'm going to be emotional, and that's okay. Another person understands that, and they can be like, "Look, let me disagree with you, but this is no attack on you. Just communicate, opening this up and conversing stuff like this really de-escalates and leads to less tension and more conversation and less shutting down.
Yeah, man, and I can say as a Palestinian American, like who was born here but has family who still even lives in Palestine, it does emotionally affect me. But
Mhm.
I'm willing to hear an Israeli perspective, and I have heard many Israeli perspectives. And where my political stance is, like libertarian stand more towards the right. I kind of have to understand why the Israeli government does certain things. Again, I'm not defending those actions, but you kind of have to understand both sides,
You have to
and you have to.
understand. You have to see from both sides to get anything done. That's beautiful. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Ransom, is there anything you want to, promote? Is there anything coming up that, maybe a podcast or maybe an appearance that you're making that you want
Hey
to
man,
tell our audience about?
I'll promote your podcast. You're doing a great job with that. Love the first episode. Follow me on Instagram at RansomFoxDC. And if you go to George Mason, stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff coming to make our community safer.
George Mason University
Yep.
in
And join the
Virginia.
conversationalists. Look up the conversationalists on Instagram. Great networking.
We'll put
Zayd,
the
it was
links.
an honor. It was an honor having you let me be on your podcast. It was an honor. It's very
It was
fun. I loved it. It was very. I've been on a lot of other podcasts, and it's great. Everyone's got strengths and weaknesses. It's a lot more structured. This is more just talking. I loved it. It was beautiful. You did a great job. You're a great host.
Thank you so much, Ransom. And we will put all those stuff in the description box below or somewhere here. I'll put it somewhere on the screen. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good one, man.
Have a good one. Stay safe. Everyone listening, stay safe and have a great rest of your wherever you're listening. Day, evening, whatever it is. Adios, y'all.